Hey S.H.E family, and welcome to season 6. I am so excited about season 6. This quarantine break has been something else. It's been a roller coaster ride. It's been a lot going on in America. So I've had a lot of time to think. I've had a lot of time to digest a few things. And honestly, with the climate in America right now, I really just wanted to talk about race relations. I wanted to talk about, what's going on in the world. There's the Black Lives Matter movement. There's, statues being removed. Like it's almost like we are really having to come to terms with who we really are as America. And I just really want to talk about it. I want to talk about it with different people, white, black, biracial, Asian, whatever, Hispanic heritage, just to kind of get a viewpoint of where they came from and how they view the world as far as race is concerned, because honestly, we really are all the human race. And I can't wait until the day that race will not matter and we're just all humans and we're just sharing this experience together. And of course, the she in pieces of she stands for shared human experience. And I've always just thought that we were all just in this thing together, experiencing this thing together and living this thing called life and trying to figure it out. So my very first guest today, I'm really excited to hear from her because her name is Caprice, and she is biracial. So she's going to tell us all about herself, and I've got some questions, and hopefully you guys enjoy. So I'm really excited. So Caprice, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. Before we get into these questions, I always do tea time. And today and every day I am unapologetically black, and figure what better day to wear this shirt than today. I mean, we're talking about race relations. It just almost seems like it's a taboo to be black these days. People get mad because you say Black Lives Matter, but guess what? They do. And I'm just proud to be a Black American, and I think everybody should be proud of who they are. So, all right, we'll get started. I'm gonna introduce Caprice with my famous 5. She is from Lansing, Michigan. She is a millennial. She grew up in a single parent household, and she grew up with 3 siblings, but she has 5. She is a middle child, and I got questions. So we're gonna get to that. And then her astrological sign is Sagittarius. So you guys know I'm a Scorpitarius, so Black Sagittarius is a lot.
I have a lot of Scorpions in my life.
Really?
In my life, yes. My husband, my mom, my father,
okay. Good.
My best friend, yeah.
When's your mom's birthday?
November 10th.
Oh, okay. I'm the 22nd.
So. Oh, yeah. So my husband's the 21st.
Really?
Yes. So
nice.
That's all the Scorpios, yeah.
Well, that's a good thing.
I'm sure.
We're lovable people. Yeah, I'm both, so. All right. So tell me about your ethnic background. Like, what is your mom white? Your dad? How does? I'm listening.
Sure. So my mom is white. My dad is black. My mom's family heritage is her father is Romanian, so very Eastern European. My grandmother is half Greek, half Scotch. They actually came from Canada by way of Scotch, by way of Canada. And so my father's side, we don't know a whole lot of family history, and Robertsons are not really like a talk about things that happen kind of people. And so I have a little bit of lore here and there, but I don't, beyond Hugh Black, that's all I really got.
Well, where's the family from?
Michigan. So that's where I grew up. The family's from Michigan, and most of the family still lives in that area when there are family reunions. But beyond my grandparents, I really don't know much about, the Robertson family history.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So growing up in Lansing, Michigan, honestly, I don't really know a lot about that area. Did you experience like racism or anything because you were biracial in that area, or is it pretty diverse over there?
It's pretty diverse, and I actually grew up with a lot of mixies. There was a lot, and I could probably name 6 to 10 different kids in our neighborhood, in our school, and so it wasn't unusual at all. There were just a lot of us. I don't think in Michigan I ever really had to think about race like I did after I came to Nevada. You still get that question every once in a while, what are you? Or people would try to be like, okay, well, are you more white or are you more black? So you'd get that sometimes, but I feel like I was never really conscious of my race and had to define my race very much until I got to Nevada.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I have fell in love with the show Mixed-ish. I love that show. And I really didn't think that I would identify with it, I guess, as much as I do. But I am learning a lot, honestly. I love Rainbow's character. But she does talk about, I actually saw an episode today.
Did you?
Crazy that we're sitting up here talking about it. But it was, she felt like she had to pick a side, or she didn't want to pick a side. And so she was struggling with that. Had you ever felt that way, that you had to pick a side?
When I came to Nevada, and so I think that, and it's hard because I grew up in Michigan, but I moved when I was 16, and so it's hard to know what was just because I was young, and then, what is regionally different. But when I came to Nevada, I was black, and everybody made me black.
Wow.
So a story I always tell is I had this friend in high school named Nick, and I remember one day he was like, Caprice, what does skeet mean? I was like, Nick, I don't know, but you're the black person, so you should know what skeet that's means, right? Yeah. And it's just, and especially, and I was in Henderson, right, for the last couple of years, so that's a really white area. But you become the black person. And so it was very much got defined, I feel like, once I got here.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's funny because I feel the same way. I actually grew up in, I say Inglewood because it really was Inglewood, but it was really the outskirts of Inglewood. It was Westchester. Okay. So it, on this side of the street, it's Inglewood. On this side, it's not.
Right across the street.
Right?
It's a rock.
So when I tell people I grew up in Inglewood, they're like, oh, okay. But it's
Inglewood adjacent.
Yeah. Kind of like I'm a Scorpitarius. Yeah. Sort of like that. But I agree with you. It's crazy because I never really even thought about being a black person when I was in California. I didn't. I had all types of friends. Most of my friends were white. None of them ever said anything to me that made me feel like, oh, you're the black friend. Never, ever. But when I came out here...
How old were you?
I was 12. I literally had to pick a side. And that's crazy for me to say that because I am black. How do you pick a side and you're just black?
Nevada's like the Old West in that way, kind of, right?
Yes.
It's, we still have black neighborhoods and, which was not the case in Michigan. It was just, or at least not in Lansing. So it's really... There's a lot of class divide in Lansing. There just wasn't a whole lot of race divide in Lansing.
Gotcha. So you never had to deal with any type of bullying or anything like that in Lansing?
No, and that's partly due to just personality. But
gotcha. Yeah.
I understand. I didn't tolerate a lot, so that and that's partly it. Probably that I was always just confident in who I was. So.
How did then your parents? How did they meet? And did they have any kind of struggles at all with the choices that they made to be together, or not?
So they were part of a larger group of friends. That's as much as I know about when they met in their 20s, and he was actually married to my oldest sister's mom at the time, who's also named as Debbie. And
thank you for the Debbie.
Yeah, he married 2 women named Debbie in a row. And so they had a kid young. So they had I think she was 19 or 20 when they had Sonia. And then they split up, and my mom was with him for a long time. She had my older sister Nicole, and then me, and got married, I think when she was pregnant with me, and then they had my brother a couple years later. But my mom raised my oldest sister Sonia. She always lived with with us and my dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Sonia's mom, is she white?
Sonia's mom is white, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
all of the women I've seen my dad with have been white.
Okay.
Yes.
So you don't have any black siblings? Like,
that I know of. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Maybe. I've heard some stories.
I have stories too, but that's not what this is about. This is about race relations.
Bring it back. Let's bring it back.
All right. So when you got here in Vegas, kind of like Vegas picked a side for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so how did you feel about that? Did that make you feel a way? Did that make you feel like you were denying your whiteness, if you will?
No. I would say honestly, I remember in high school having a lot of those experiences. I don't feel like I had them as much when I was in college. I stayed here for, college and was at UNLV. And I honestly probably didn't start to think about race that much again so I went to California to do my master's. I came back and started working at CSN, and that's probably the first time where I really started to think about race again. And you know what it actually was? Do you remember they were trying to redo the African American Heritage Committee?
Okay.
Like it had been kind of like the committee had dissolved a little while ago and nothing had happened. And so they had sent out this email to, 100, all the black, which you can't do, I don't know how they got away with that, but all the black faculty and staff, and was like, hey, we're going to try to do this committee. And I went to the committee meeting and I was unsure about it because I was new to this school and there was a bunch of emails back and forth with some individuals talking and I was like, and so I walked.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I walked into the room, right, and it was maybe 15 or 20 of us, and everybody was black, and I was like, I literally can't remember the last time when I was in a room with all black people.
Really?
Yes, and I felt like I felt it, I was conscious of that fact because I had spent so much time in these white spaces that. I became really conscious of it, and that's really, I think, when I started to make an active effort to, if I'm going to be black anyway, to really be part of the community.
Gotcha. So let me ask you this: are you closer to your mom's side of the family or your dad's side of the family, or is it the same? Do you communicate with them, the same?
I'm definitely closer to my mom's side of the family. I didn't grow up with my dad. He wasn't there most of the time. He left when my brother was young, so maybe, I was 5 or 6. And I saw him a handful of times afterwards, but not consistently. So mostly it was my mom's side of the family.
Gotcha. And you don't necessarily communicate with? No,
but it's also a personality thing. It's not just it's also a personality thing.
Right. Okay. So you were talking about work, and you were talking about how you kind of had to pick a side. So at work, people see you as black.
I think they do now, and I think especially because I'm so active within the black community at CSN, I would say a lot of them do. Yeah.
Okay. And have you ever had to deal with any type of racism in your family?
My family?
Or is everybody pretty accepting of people?
Yeah, never any that I've seen.
Yeah. Well, because it's funny, because I know that, so we have colorism, in the black community. And I am darker than some black people. And the crazy thing is, the first time that I even dealt with colorism was in my family.
And it's usually the people closest to you, right? Yeah. I'm not surprised.
And that's sad that I dealt with it there. I can honestly say I don't think that have you ever been called the N-word?
No.
Okay. I one time when I was in the 3rd grade, so I was living in California.
Was a kid?
It was a kid, yeah. And she was within arm's reach. And that was the only person that has ever done it within arm's reach. The consequences of that, she was in arm's reach. So, yeah. You know, but other than that, people have screamed it to me. But if you're within arm's reach,
no, but you guys were so young, and like she obviously knew, like she was trying to weaponize the word.
And she was Hispanic.
Really?
Yeah. Craziness, right?
That is. So my husband is half Hispanic, or his mom is from El Salvador.
So he's Hispanic and what?
And black.
Oh, okay.
So he comes off as black. Like if you look at him, he's darker than me. But his mom is from El Salvador, so he's mixed also. And so like, just seeing like some of the contention between the black and brown community has always baffled me, because it's not us that helps. Like it's the white people that us fighting. That's who that helps. And so I've always hated that contention.
Yeah. It's. I don't know. We'll get there. We'll get there one day.
Another episode, right?
Right. So how do you first feel about the Black Lives Matter movement that's going on right now in America?
I've always been really supportive of it, and it's sad that we have to say that, right? Like, to me, it's somewhat sad, because, like, why do we have to say that? And then why do we have to keep saying that? But, I've always been supportive of it, and I really, I truly believe that people make the difference in their own spheres, like, of influence. And, mine, of course, is, where I work. And so early days during Black Lives Matter, I tried to hold a panel for Black Lives Matter event at the college, and got a lot of negative reaction to it.
Wow.
But I've always really, just having the conversation, I think, is so important, and I'm glad. I'm not glad for the reasons, but I'm glad that the movement has gotten so much spotlight recently again.
Have you experienced, because I have, more white people being very supportive of the movement, and then very interested? I mean, asking questions like, hey, how can I help? What can I do? And for me, it's a little baffling, because, so you mean to tell me you didn't know before now?
How do you respond when people do say that?
I mean, honestly, I've had the discussions, and I'll tell them and talk to them about it, because at least they're asking, and they feel comfortable enough to ask. And I like the fact that they're interested. I do. And I don't want to be the person that, let's just say I'm this angry person that just says, you should know, or whatever. I don't want to push them away.
But why does that have to be your job?
It doesn't. It really doesn't. And I'm giving them resources, and they are doing the work.
Oh, that's good.
Which is great. So it's kind of like I'm a coach on the sidelines, just to kind of say, okay. I mean, that's how I feel. And it shouldn't be my job, but if not me, then who?
And I'm really torn about this, and I've actually read a couple articles about it, about kind of, after these events started, and how so many white people reached out to their black friends, and a lot of them were like, oh, I'm just checking in, and to me, that specifically is performance allyship. I want to feel better about doing something, so I'm going to check in with my black friends, and then I can say, oh, I did something. That's not something like that. That's not something, right? I think it's better those people who are asking for resources, but I still, and I'm really torn about what the role is, because there's so much out there. There's so much literature. There's so many articles that if you just did like a 30-second Google search, you would get a bunch of good stuff. So why do you have to go ask the people of color that to do that work for you? And so I think I'm kind of torn on that.
I understand.
On the one hand, I'm glad they're asking. On the other hand, I know that you could figure this out. So
Quit being lazy. Do your job.
No, it is. And part of like even us and like everything I know, not everything is my experiences, right? A lot of things I know intellectually because I read and because I've looked, and I did that work. So I know that you can do that work too.
Well, so I had an epiphany when talking to them. This particular person that I'm talking about, she says, I'm really trying, and I even make a conscious effort to speak to all different people of all races. I speak to Black people, but a lot of Black people won't even look at me. And so then this didn't even dawn on her. I says, well, it used to be illegal for Black people to look white people in the eye. That
like she's talking about strangers?
Just like in the store, grocery store. Hi, how are you? And I told her that it's kind of weird because I had a white guy. I had a white guy come up to me and goes, "You really look good in that color." And I'm like, "You're creepy." I mean, I said thank you, but inside I was like, "You're a creep, and have you ever seen me in any other color?"
Yeah.
Because now I'm worried that you're stalking me. It's weird.
That is weird. I mean, I think beyond race, even that's weird. So maybe I would say to her that's not the best way for you to show. Because I assume that what she's trying to do is show acceptance of the community. And maybe there's a better way to do that. That's less.
And I think but I think that's why they're checking in to know if this is offensive. Is this offensive? Because I did tell her something was offensive.
Does she do that to other white people?
Do they what?
Does she do that to other white people?
No.
See, that's the thing. So that's probably a good bar, right? Is if you don't go up to other white people in the grocery store.
But this is America. We have issues with racism.
No, we do, but you said she was checking in with you.
Oh,
and
okay.
So at that check-in, if you wouldn't do it to other white people, then you shouldn't be doing it to Black people. It's probably a good bar. If you don't go up to white people and say, "Hey, how you doing? I like you in that color," to strangers, then you probably shouldn't be going up to Black people.
Well, but
you know what it reminds me of? Is you know how men will always tell women to smile?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Oh, I'm just telling you to smile, blah, blah, blah." And say it to another man. And they won't, because it's not, so if you wouldn't say it to another man, so I think it's like that same bar, like...
Yeah.
My two cents.
Do you ever think we'll overcome this thing? Do you ever think race will at one point not be an issue?
So I think that race and class are very tied to each other, right? You have racism because you have classism. You have classism because you have racism. White, poor people can say, at least I'm not Black, right? Mm-hmm. And I think those two things are very tied together. And I don't think you're going to be able to overcome one without overcoming the other. And so in order to, I think, overcome racism, you also have to start addressing the so many class issues that we have in this country as well, around generational wealth and who gets opportunity. And so I think, do I think ever? Not in my lifetime. Wow. But I think it can get better. But it can get better, and that's the thing. But people are very tribal by nature. Mm-hmm. I want to be with my people, and I want to know that I'm better than somebody, right? Wow. And so it's hard, so what you're asking of people is to be selfless. And I have not seen that there are enough people who are willing to do that in order to overcome racism. But like I said, I think it can get better, and I think while racism is social and learned, there are policies that you can implement to help dispel a lot of racial and racism related practices. Mm-hmm.
And speaking of policies, what do you think about this whole defund the police movement?
So I I think it makes sense. And I think because when you say defund the police, you're not saying take all the money away and just we're not going to have anybody policing, right? What you're talking about are these other social services that the police have for very many years been tasked with doing, right? Like when there's a homeless person, you're calling the police to have them removed from your storefront, you know, and maybe there's a social worker would be better for that, to get them into housing or to get them resources. And so I think that we spend so much money on the police. I think it would work, and it's a lot of work to do this, but it would work to take look at a comprehensive budget and talk about how we could better allocate funds in order to put them towards more social services to help with domestic violence and to help with homelessness and all of those other things that police have had to do. That
even drugs
to do.
Oh gosh, they need help. They don't need to go to jail.
Yes, and that's with the recent heroin issue, how all of a sudden drug use became a health issue and was no longer a criminal issue. All it took was a bunch of white people getting addicted. So it's I mean, you could take almost any major issue in this country and just see the discrepancies between how they're treated among different races.
It is. It's really sad, but I do think that with the videos, circulating, people are starting to see that, okay, wow, that happened to me last week. I got stopped because my tail light was out, and he let me go with a warning, and I went home. But this guy got beat down, or this guy died, or I have a concealed weapon permit. I told the officer, he told me, he asked me to see it. I put it on the dash, and that was what happened. But Philando got killed in front of his child. That is it's just something I think to say about the lack of morals and humanity that we as America have right now. But I really just hope that one day we do get to the dream of everybody is equul. And
I think it's possible. I think what you just have to do is you have to raise another generation to do that. I don't think it's the people in charge right now.
I think this generation is gonna do it though.
They could. You know what it feels like right now? And I wasn't there, so I don't know. But it feels very much like reading about like the protests in the 60s and things like that.
It does.
Which we all think of as this time of change. And I think that we're gonna look back on this time and feel that same way. It's sad that 50, 60 years later we're fighting the same battles we were, same civil rights battles. But I think this is going to go down in the history books, and I think our kids are going to grow up and ask us about it.
Yeah. Well, I can only hope and pray, and of course I do the work. I do give to different organizations. I make the calls. For the change. I sign the petitions, send the emails, things like that. But this racial thing in America is, I don't know. It just really makes me sad. It makes me sad.
I mean, to say the least, right?
Yeah. So my last question before, honestly, you've been awesome. I literally love talking to different people with different backgrounds because your background is so different than mine, But have you ever been told not to date a certain race?
So I never have, and that actually goes back to your previous question when you talked about racism in the family. Race was never a conscious thing with my family, and so I was really never told in any capacity who to date or who not to date.
Right.
That said, I've always usually dated men who are mixed or brown men too. And so, and I think that you have similar experiences, so that feels.
I guess I've never thought about that. You can date kind of whoever because
I am and here's the thing about being a person of color, right? So I'm not white, because there's a very singular definition of what is white in America, right? So I'm not white, and in some cases I'm not black, but I'm definitely not white. And so Yeah, I've never.
Have you ever dated an only white or only black person?
So I have actually. So I had a boyfriend for a few years who was black, and then the next guy I dated after that, who was the guy before my husband, was white. And I found that while he's a good person and he was fun to date, our experiences of being a woman and person of color and then being a white man were just so different. And the ease through which he walked through the world kind of bothered me sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, it was just.
And did he like never see what you were talking about? Like when you would say, "Did you see how that lady just?" I mean, did you guys even have those experiences?
You know, and we did, and he would always acknowledge and validate what I said, but it was. I don't know, it never was that deep, right? And I don't feel like it was ever internalized. And so so like I said, he was fun to date for a while, but I knew that long term that would never be, I could never marry a guy who was white for that reason. Just because I felt like our experiences were just so separate or so different from each other, especially here.
Yeah. Well, what about the black person did you find that you guys had more similar experiences?
Yeah, and I think that's the case, and that's partly why, I've always dated black or brown men, is because we do have more similar experiences, just, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So then with your mom being completely, white, what does she say about your, I guess, black experience? Or
not much. So I was telling my friend the other day about how one time my mom asked me what I wanted. She was getting barbecue for dinner, and I said catfish, and she was like, "Why do you like catfish?" And I was like, "You wouldn't understand, it's a black thing." And she was like, "Whatever, Caprice." But like there just wasn't a lot of now we talk about race a lot, but there just wasn't a lot of conscious like discussion of race growing up or any of that. Which partly I think was a sign of the times, but yeah, I don't think it was ever. I always wondered, like when we go out places and people see us with our mom, if they, because sometimes you see people and you're like, don't feel like they belong together, or you're like, as a family unit. So I always wondered if when we went out, people thought of us.
That you guys were, possibly, and I'll say that because I'm saying this. I have my daughter who looks a lot like my husband, like pretty much all like him.
How dare she?
And then my niece, she's dark. We're about the same complexion, and she favors my mom's, family. So she looks more like me. So we always, when we're out and about, people would always assume that she was my daughter, and
really?
And my daughter was her friend or cousin or something like that. So they might, it's really sad though.
So my mom actually married a white guy for
okay,
a handful of years, and so I guess what I was specifically thinking, like when they were together and they'd be out with us, the white, mom, white stepfather, and these two brown kids, or 2 or 3, but at the time my sister was older, so usually me and my brother at that time, so.
So then that brings a whole nother, aspect to this thing. So then you grew up with a white stepfather. How was that? So
I wouldn't say I grew up with him. So my mom married him around the time that I was 15 or 16.
Gotcha.
And so they were together for a few years. And that was a whole other story, but that's how I ended up in Vegas. So it was like before probably I was so conscious of race, but I do remember being at the airport and we were getting coffee or something before our flight, and this woman was kind of you could tell she was trying to figure us out.
Yeah.
And that always kind of stayed with me,
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny. What about your teachers and everything? You didn't have to deal with any type of issues with them?
I was always a pretty smart kid, and that got me really far. And then some of the best teachers, or the teachers I remember the best, were black. My 4th grade teacher, my 5th grade teacher, and and I think them seeing a mixed or a black kid who was also smart, they really took the time to they invested time in me. I never, I don't think I've ever had a teacher where that's been an issue.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I've had things happen with colleagues, but I don't think I've heard teachers.
Yeah.
Which is good because
teachers think. Growing up, I don't think I've ever had an issue, a racial type issue with any teachers. My teachers, I was also very smart. So that was the thing with the teachers. I mean, if you're doing your work and you're they like you. So. Yeah.
I mean, but that goes to, so something that's being discussed a lot now is, and forgive me, is Elijah, what's the name of him?
I don't know. His last name is escaping me, but I know in Aurora, Colorado, we're talking about Elijah. Young, I think I want to say he was 19 years old.
I think he was early 20s.
Was he early 20s?
Yeah, but he, they were talking about how he went and played the violin at the shelter and just how, like, a great person he was. But I saw somebody yesterday posting, like, just as a reminder, even if they're not a great person, it's still not okay.
To kill them.
Yeah, for Black people to die. Yeah, to be killed by the police. Right. And I think that's an important thing, right?
Yeah.
And so that just reminded me of it because, I think you will find that there's a discrepancy perhaps among people of color who are smart and really academic, can excel in academics versus the people who can't and probably how they're treated.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen that as well. And it's really unfortunate. Instead of people taking the time, because these students need it, obviously.
Yeah.
They're treated differently. So, I don't know. This is America. But I thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
Yes, I have enjoyed all of your insight and just letting us into your life a little bit. I appreciate it. And I give these to everybody that is on my show because you share a piece of yourself.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome.
Take me with you wherever you go, and just remember we're all experiencing this thing together. We're gonna make it. If not in our lifetime, soon after. This next generation, you guys, let's do it. Like,
you got this.
You got this. We are cheering you on. We're making the phone calls. We're doing what we got to do. But I love seeing them out there in the streets and making it happen. So thank you so much. You have made this very first episode of season 6 amazing.
I'm glad.
I can't wait for you guys to experience everybody else. We'll have 10 episodes this season because Mo's not with us this season. But either I'm going to do it by myself or I'm going to get me a find a co-host for me this season. We'll see how that happens. Maybe somebody will want to co-host with me. If not, I got this.
Taking applications?
Yeah, I am. But Pieces of She, search for us on YouTube, of course. You're looking at us right now. Pieces of She podcast. On Instagram at pieces.of.she. Twitter, you can follow us at piecesofshe1. You can also email me, Trish at piecesofshe.com. If you want to be on the show, if you know somebody that wants to be on the show, if you have a question, DM me. Until next time.